Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, yours the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 723. My name is Eric Nelson, and with me today, my regular co-host Bob Plankard. Today is Wednesday, May 21st, 2025. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's terrible weather up here in the Midwest and northern Midwest, but it's a good day to stay inside and talk about community stuff with you guys. So.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's not snowing. You just got some stormy.
Oh, don't even say it. It's
yeah.
It feels like it might, but
it might. You get one of those Indian
My
winters.
garden would all die. Yeah.
Well, there you go. On the show today, we're going to be talking about vCenter native key providers with blogger and community member Daniel Keer, and so we'll get to him and talk about what's happening with key management these days. And also Daniel passed his VCP-VCF certification, so we can do a run through with him on what he thought. We've gotten mixed reviews on how hard it was to pass that puppy, but he got through it, so we'll talk to him about that. And then key management as well. Do a little bit about his blog, the thedxt.ca is his blog, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But before we do that, we'll do a drive-by to Corey Romero out in Utah. Corey, vExpert program manager, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. Got a couple things happening in vExpert. Just sent out an invite to all vExperts for an NDA call that's happening on June 11th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. You must read the invite in order to attend the event. Please do not pass on any information about this. So vExperts, please go in and read your email. If you didn't get this invite, then send me an email and we'll see what happened. We also are in the middle of the sub-program application voting, and we still expect announcements to happen on June 2nd at 5 p.m. So excited for that. And also Bob Plankers is now taking over the vExpert security program. So happy to announce that.
Heck yeah. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, good. Okay, thanks a lot for that update. Bob, I don't know if there's any other news we got going on here. I think it's been pretty quiet other than Explore, Red open.
A couple of things.
Yeah.
We were talking about how we talk about security a lot, and I think that might be just because I do a lot of security stuff. There have been a couple of vulnerabilities disclosed recently. There was also a hacking contest in Germany this last weekend, and with some interesting results there, and people are getting panicked about that. We're working on it. Just a lot of the stuff when you see stuff like this, a lot of this is normal process. It just goes on in the background. People don't see how the sausage is made. And when you first get to see how the sausage is made, everyone kind of freaks out like, oh my God, we're all going to die. Well, yeah, but not today, and and so we're working on it. We, those sorts of vulnerabilities. One of the biggest things too, that when we talk about this, those contests, they will demonstrate a vulnerability to us, and we participate. We don't want these. We buy it from them, so that they don't disclose it to other people and other adversaries and things. And so then we have to test it ourselves, make sure that it's actually fixing what we're planning on fixing actually fixes the problem. People want us to test those things. So all of that stuff, it takes a little time. So, but the vulnerabilities that came out on yesterday morning, they're not related to that hacking contest, to the Pwn to Own stuff. So, if anything, it's just an opportunity to tell your change management folks that there's going to be another one of these things in maybe a few weeks or so. We don't quite know when. And so, yeah, I don't know, rare opportunity to see the future.
Yeah,
but that's all I've got for news.
A follow-up question with that. When they do these contests, are they finding, is this vulnerability one that existed for a while, or do they find things that are new in a new release? I'm just curious,
Sometimes both, it's the old IT motto, it depends,
right.
And so what they do is they pre-register ahead of time. They tell the contest organizers that they're planning on demonstrating certain things. Sometimes we've actually found and fixed the problem ahead of time, and so what they're required to do in this particular contest, they're required to demonstrate it against the absolute latest published version of the software. And so in this case, it was, it's something that it was pre-existing. But in other cases, sometimes they fail because we've actually found it ourselves and fixed it or whatever, and so so kind of a mixed bag there.
Mixed bag. Yeah, not an answer. Just wondered if we were just finding the old bugs still, or whether it's a mix. So
anytime we create new code, we try not to create new bugs, but some of our code base, there's weird interactions at times, and that's some of what was found, to be honest. And so
yeah, and when you pick up new libraries or new functions, and you're using, like software is complex. There's a lot of dependencies.
Yeah.
So you find stuff in things that we're using from other vendors and other things.
Yeah, open source, open source stuff. Like, I don't know. It's complicated. You're right.
Well, another shout out, UserCon Denver, May 29th. That's next Thursday. Yeah. I'm going to be there. It's a Topgolf UserCon, and I'm going to go out to Colorado. And I was there last year. It was a lot of fun, and it's at Topgolf. So I got a little challenge going with a couple of buddies. We'll see how I do, see if I can swing the clubs. But, go out for the day. We have UserCons where we do Topgolf. We do UserCons, which are event-based, bigger ones. There's going to be one in Belgium on the 5th of June coming up. Then we have a little bit of a break, and then Boston, September 18th, and I can't tell which one this is. Maybe that's Boston. There's another one in September. Oh, UK UserCon is also September 18th. So they're out there. Go to vmug.com and look for your event. Sign up for your chapter meeting. I'm going to be in Denver next week, and looking forward to saying hello to some people. Yep, Thursday, all day, fun time.
Yeah, that should be fun.
Yeah, good times. All right, well, let's get back to the show, and let's talk to Daniel Keer. Daniel, we always, in community podcasts, we just want to ask you, tell us a little about yourself. How did you get here? What's the 4-minute elevator pitch of who you are? What does your career look like? How did you get here, and what do you work on these days?
Well, I am Daniel Keer. I've been working in the IT space for a number of years. The interesting thing about it is that I am all self-taught. A lot of it is just kind of playing with things in my home lab, questioning why things do what they do and how everything functions, and breaking a lot of things, learning the hard way what write mem does on a switch, and just kind of figuring stuff like that out. I'm based in Calgary, Alberta in Canada, and I work at a managed service provider, and we do IT for a bunch of companies, and it allows us to kind of have a whole testing ground to play with new things and test out stuff. And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go. Right. It is kind of cool do you guys have an on-prem test environment? So you're not doing stuff out at customer sites, or do you do a mix of, when you're looking at new functions and new capabilities, do you do stuff on-prem, home lab, whatever, then take it out to customer sites? Or does customers have, dev environments or, hack environments so you guys can look at things? I wonder how that was working out for you guys.
It depends. In most situations, I will beta test a lot of things in my home lab and kind of see how it functions and then roll it out to production. A few customers do have a dev environment, but it's not a copy of everything. Having like a test and prod firewall isn't usually very cost effective, so a lot of places won't have that. But I have a home lab, so I kind of test things there. It's more common that it's kind of, you might beta test things at home and then see how it functions and then deploy it live.
Nice.
Yeah, we the Wisconsin vMug vMug chapter had a meeting yesterday, in fact, and it came up that the old quote, "Everyone has a test environment. Some people are lucky enough to have separate production environments too." So, but that makes a lot of sense.
Nice. So you have a blog, and I encourage everybody to go take a look at it. It's a nice blog, the DXT, thedxt.ca. So go check that out. And there's a couple articles that are good. We're going to talk about vCenter and native key provider tech that you wrote did some screenshots on that. But before we go there, maybe we should talk about your VCP-VCF cert, right? You went and got that. I was just curious where you got that. What was the process like? How much did you study? And what was your score, if you want to share it?
I did it at VMUG Connect,
Nice.
and in order to study for it, I did the VMware Code study sessions. I was attending those live, and I read the VMware Code study guide. One of the things that was kind of interesting with it, because it's like 200 or so pages, the entire study guide, I read top to bottom, but for me to be able to fully kind of grasp everything, I needed to reinforce it somehow. So a friend of mine told me about Notebook LM, and I was able to take the entire PDF of the VCF study guide and dump it into Notebook LM. And then with that, you can actually have it make a podcast of the study guide where you have two
That's
AI
fun.
hosts that were kind of talking about all of it. And it was like a 70-minute podcast episode, which I listened to the entire thing of, and it helped kind of reinforce everything. Unfortunately, we don't have any customers that have VCF currently, so I wasn't really able to play with VCF, but I did use the VMware hands-on lab so that I could actually like play with a lot of things. I think one of the things that also was beneficial was the fact that I've been playing with vCenter and ESXi since I think like version 6.5, so not super old, but long enough that a lot of that helped with a bunch of the questions.
Yeah, that's interesting. First Notebook LM, that's fantastic. I've done some of that too. You give it a slide deck, makes a whole presentation, or give it a document, makes a whole podcast presentation of all the data. It also goes out and looks online to augment it. So it looks at your data in what you give it, but it also will search Google because it's from Google, right? And then augment the conversation based on what Google gives it as well, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah. My actual score, I had to look it up, was 364.
Nice. So 300 pass, 364,
Yeah.
no problem. And I think the biggest one that I've heard is like people that don't use NSX maybe gets kept ARIA, a little bit of ARIA, and then Cloud Manager or for the install, or SDDC Manager. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Some of that. Did you find that any of that on the test that you were surprised at, or at least the study guide? And you can go to code youtube.com/VMware code. All those videos are still up there, and we're promoting to those. So were there any topics that you went, oh, I'm glad I studied? I wouldn't have gotten that just knowing vSphere.
Yes, there was a lot that I was like, I am very glad I studied. I got a bunch of like ARIA questions. I don't think I got too many NSX, but like having done the study session, I felt like I was very prepared. Because I did the 2025 edition of the VCF admin exam, and having done the study session, I think that for sure set me up for success. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have known the answers to a lot of the ARIA questions. And I think one of the other, I did get some like Tanzu based ones, or vSphere Supervisor, I think now.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't played with Docker at home, I think I might have struggled a little bit on those, but I kind of had a bit of the basics of Tanzu, because in Calgary, we have a local VMUG chapter, VMUG Calgary, and they did an event where it was kind of how Tanzu works, and which was really cool because you got to play with it. And they did an event a couple of years back that was about NSX. So that I think helped. And actually, VMUG Calgary has an event on June 13th.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, nice. So, from your did you do this in order to get your Advantage Home Lab license, or
Yep.
that was the motivator? Having looked at it, and everybody grimaced about, oh my gosh, I got to do this to get my Home Lab licenses now, right? Having gone through it, do you think it was worth it in the end? Because I know sometimes when I go through and I look at something I need to do, and I have to do it, but then at the end I go, that was actually pretty worth my time, right? I guess I would ask you that. Do you feel enlightened? Do you feel like it was worth your time now that you've gotten through it?
Yeah, I definitely think it was worth my time. Like if you were to look at what you get for the home lab licenses and were to look at like the MSRP for that, it's a steal of a deal to do that. And the only requirement is you got to study a little bit and pass an exam. And no, I was very happy I did that
Because
because now
a
I,
lot of people haven't refreshed their VCP since since 3.x, right? That was the last time I did VCP, and I
Well,
kind of was glad I did it because there was just a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I didn't even realize I didn't know.
and it was nice having it at Connect too.
Mhm.
I took it at Connect and I passed barely. I seemed to get all of the Kubernetes questions. Am I a Kubernetes guy? Not really. But and NSX, arcane NSX questions, the what I consider arcane, which might not actually be arcane, but yeah, it's nice having it at the conferences though. And I think that's something that we can think about doing more, because it's
Well, I know
a
they're
definite value
doing
add for the
it-
conference.
They're doing it at Explore this year there, so everybody gets a free certification test if you buy one of the packages. If you buy the super cheap package, the $800 package, I think you got to pay.
You get the all-in one that's
Yeah.
got all the features.
Or even the medium all-in-one. There's 3 different package layers. The medium one includes it. The only one that doesn't is I think the $900 community hub one.
Okay, yeah.
And then, but then they still give you half off. Yeah, you can buy it for $100
that's not bad.
or something like that. So they're still giving you a break on it, but they're like, okay, that was the we'll give you this as cheap as we can pass for the hub and community talk. So neat. Well, all right. So that's your take. I felt like that. I felt like a lot of people are, learning a lot, and in the end, you get to refresh your education, and now you're good for 3 years, and you get a $20,000 VCP license, or VCF license, which I think people don't realize. It comes with ARIA, it comes with NSX, vCenter, it comes with everything we've ever built. Right, is in that package.
Well, that's the point of VCF moving forward here. It's got most of everything in it, So,
yeah.
Daniel, what'd you think of Connect? Did you like it?
I thought Connect was great. My only tech conference experience was in 2024, I went to VMware Explorer, which was the first large tech conference I've ever been to.
Nice.
And VMUG Connect definitely was a smaller scale than Explorer was, but it felt more intimate. It was great kind of just talking to random people that were there. You did the session on the VCF on the pre-Connect day, which I thought was super cool. And then even talking to you, Eric, at the event about the home lab stuff, that was, you could just talk to anyone, and it was really cool. I liked it.
Yeah,
we get weird interactions because people know us from videos and stuff like that, but turns out we're just people, and you can ask us questions and hand us a beer and things like that. So, hey, I'm looking at your blog here. You went to White Castle?
Yes.
Had you not been to White Castle before?
I had never been to White Castle.
Oh, excellent.
I had always heard about it, and Harold and Kumar go to White Castle.
Did you get Harold and Kumar?
So I was like, well, I've heard it enough times that.
Did you ride a cheetah? Did you ride a cheetah?
No, I did not.
No. Okay.
But I decided to do Daniel Goes to White Castle and tried White Castle, and it was good.
Yeah, square burgers with the holes in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd call them good. I'd call them.
They were edible.
They're edible, right?
They're all right.
Kind of like a TV dinner in college. If you're desperate and you want a little meal and some veggies and some Salisbury steak, you can do it, and it works. It fills you up.
I've had the frozen ones from the grocery store.
That's right.
About it.
Yeah. I think I first saw. I'm trying to think where it was. I think it was North Florida. So I think they must have come down out of the southern states and ended up somewhere in northern Florida. I went to Gainesville, University of Florida, and for undergrad, and I think it was there that I first met these little square burgers, and it was a college thing.
They must have started up north because we had them when I was growing up. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, and there was always White Castles around there, all throughout my youth and things. So that must have started there and just spread.
Yeah, yeah, neat. So Daniel, let's shift gears. So thanks for doing the VCF pitch, and hope everybody gets that. And go to Explore and take your test, get certified, get your bits. Everything works great. You got your home lab, William Lamb's publishing how to get VCF, on a Nook, and we think we got a VCF. We think we got a Nook, the mini PC that will run 9 as well, right? For under $1,000. We're hoping to publish that for Explore, so it should be some fun home lab stuff there. And so there you go. So let's talk. The main topic: vCenter native key providers. Bob, I'll let you and Daniel have fun with this one.
Nerd out on this one. Yeah, I know a guy that's written a bunch of stuff about this, and so yeah, Daniel and I were talking about that. But you're really talking about encryption, data at rest encryption, things like that. And so
So what's the challenge? The challenge is how to manage all your encryption keys, right? And keeping track of it all and not having them expire and keeping them secure. For people that haven't done this, what are they facing?
I guess that's a question for you, Daniel.
They're facing a few clicks inside of vCenter of creating the actual native key provider and then backing it up and deploying it on kind of all the hosts. The main reason why I started playing with it is because of the impending Windows 10 death and having to move to Windows 11. And then if there is VDI VMs or just kind of test Windows systems, well, it's harder to do Windows 11 without a TPM, but then if you set up the native key provider, click through it, then you can actually have a fully supported Windows 11 on VMware.
So I guess we have to back up a little bit because I'm listening to this going, oh wait, I'm still on 10. What are we doing here? Right? Why don't you take us through the problem set of 11 needs a key provider, a native key provider. What is all this? Right.
So with Windows 11, one of the big things that Microsoft forced was everyone having to have a TPM. And when you have the virtual infrastructure VMware and vCenter, if with Windows 10, everything was perfectly fine. You just create a VM, everything is good. But with Microsoft forcing Windows 11 to have a TPM, there are ways around it.
TPM.
Trusted Platform Module. It's in fact, I'm a little bitter. I cleaned my desk and I lost mine. I've got a hardware one floating around here somewhere. Little thing inside of a physical server that keeps secrets and stores secrets securely. There's a virtual version of it in vSphere and Cloud Foundation.
And one of Microsoft's big things was you need to have a TPM because it will store your BitLocker key. It will help work with secure boot. And Microsoft is pushing security real hard with Windows 11. So then everyone is kind of presented with a challenge. How do you do this inside of vCenter? And the easy solution is you do a native key provider in your vCenter, which then unlocks the ability to create a virtual TPM, a vTPM, and then you can just allocate that to a Windows 11 system, or you can even add it to a Windows 10 system to in-place upgrade from 10 to 11, allowing you to do all of the Windows 11 stuff.
So we should step back just for a second too here, Eric. So why you need a key provider is because you need encryption. The virtual, so a real hardware TPM is neat, but we don't present that to the workload itself. We don't present that to the VM itself because that would prevent vMotion, for example. How do you, if something is stored on one physical host, how do you move that VM around? So we keep the secrets by encrypting. So all that data that the workload stores, that Windows stores,
the key needs to be stored somewhere outside of the,
and it needs to go with the VM too. What does that? Well, VM encryption does that. So we encrypt the a few small parts of the VM itself, the NVRAM file, for example, and we use VM encryption to do that. And so what native key provider or standard key provider, any key provider enables is that encryption. And so that's why that's important too.
Okay, I got one other, easy question for the guys who are listening to this. I have Windows 11 box. I swear I have a Nook that has Windows 11 on it. And I don't remember doing anything. I remember just getting Windows 11 and it booted up and ran. But it was probably pre-installed on the Lenovo Nook or whatever it used to be the Intel Nook. I swear I didn't do anything. Is that just because on a normal Windows box I just have that embedded somewhere as a service?
Yep. On basically any system in the last, I forget how many years, but it's been a while, that systems have just been shipping with TPMs. It's different in the server world, because
And
sometimes they don't.
why don't they ship? Oh my goodness, Daniel, you
Budget
just
cuts.
push my buttons, man. Like drives me nuts. Desktops have all this goodness. Yeah. Anyhow, I'm sorry, I derailed you.
And
All right, what you derailing on, Bob, is because
why don't servers just have a TPM in them?
Right.
Like let's just put one in there. You have to somehow remember to order it with your server and hope that somebody along the way doesn't rekey your order. That used to happen to me all the time, and they'd forget the TPM because what is this thing? It's $50. We don't need that thing. That I don't understand it, so we'll leave it off the quote. And somebody would order it. Not that I'm bitter about any of this stuff, but my goodness,
But one advantage is you can do native key provider in vCenter without your hosts having TPMs.
Correct.
It's probably not the most secure idea, but you could.
But it's
do
abstracted. Meet people where they're at. It's better than nothing, right? And so yeah.
Yeah, I've eBayed a few TPM modules for my home lab servers because they didn't have it, and
don't get used ones. They bind.
Oh, no.
So hardware TPMs are cryptographically bound to the first host they power on into, and so if you buy used ones, they're not going to work. So
I didn't know they sold used ones.
I tried the eBay thing too, and turns out somebody was selling used ones, and I was like, hey pal, no. So luckily that that worked out okay. I got my money back, but I think it was all of like $30. So.
But even within the TPM levels, there's different TPM versions because you got TPM 1.2 and then you got TPM 2.0. There was a host that I was installing ESXi 8 on, and ESXi was complaining that it wasn't fully supported, and it was because the Lenovo host was running TPM 1.2, but fortunately I could just go into the BIOS and then upgrade it to TPM 2.0 to make it fully
that's nice.
ESXi 8 compatible, which I'd never seen that problem, but everything.
That means it's a virtual one or something that they've got going on. But if it's fully compatible, what the heck, A lot of times you actually have to replace the chip to do that.
Yeah.
So
I was very fortunate with that.
Yeah, I did not know that about Lenovo.
I don't know if it's all the models, but the one that I did have, fortunately, I was able to upgrade it, and I wrote a whole blog post about it.
Yeah, and you were telling us too that so you've been doing a lot of poking around with this native key provider and key providers in general. And I was looking at your blog. In fact, I just pulled up my test environment. You've been doing a lot of security stuff here, and that's actually pretty cool. So what else about native key provider?
So I have a question on that.
Yeah, what's up?
Sort of blog, right? I go through it. I go, okay, looks like you just go in to the configure tab, right? Log into vCenter, go to configure tab, and under the security section, there is key providers, and then you add native key provider. So I'm not needing to install any additional software to vCenter. They just got this baked in, and all I'm doing is setting one up, right, and naming it, right? Is that correct here?
Yep.
Blog. The answer is yes, right?
Yep.
Yes.
That was a very quick yes. Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Naming is worth talking about a little bit here too. Key providers are found by their name, and so if you've got there's a lot of different ways you can set these up. You probably don't want name conflicts. If you've got a whole bunch of different vCenters, for example, you don't want to name them all like NKP or key provider or something like that. You want to have them have unique names because you might have to copy them back and forth at times, and so that's important safety tip there.
So once I do this looks straightforward. Your blog article just shows the 2 or 3 panels you click on, create the native key provider, name it, and away you go. When I'm setting up my VM, is that like a VM property now that I select the Windows operating system, or do I have to actually and then tell the VM what key provider to use, or do I have to actually go in the operating system once I've booted it up and make that connection? How do I make that connection back to this key provider?
So if you create a VM, let's say it's a Windows 11 VM, and you want it to start using like the TPM, you would then go to that VM and go add virtual TPM, and then it would have the TPM module for itself. But you can also,
When you say go to the VM, you mean go into vSphere and edit
yes,
the VM.
and yeah, edit the settings on the VM, and then you can add hardware, like you would add like a NIC or another hard drive. You could just add a virtual TPM, and then that functions. It will by default use whatever the default native, because you can have more than one native key provider in your vCenter, but only one can be the default. So whatever the default is will be always what is used. And if you look on Bob's screen share, you can see can add a trusted platform module
Yep.
by just
And then,
editing.
yeah, and then it shows up as a security device. And okay, you
And
can
then
say
now,
okay, and then
and now it's Windows 11.
Yep. Well, it's yeah. Well, or you can run VBS or whatever you want. Windows Server supports all of the stuff, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. But you'll get this little lock symbol, and that means that it's encrypted part of the VM. So now you've got an encrypted VM here, and yeah, and I've got a native key provider already configured. The in this case, I was demonstrating. I configured it. I was demonstrating that you can copy it. There's some organizations that use the same native key provider everywhere, and then which is a valid thing. Then they can move VMs back and forth seamlessly between clusters and vCenters and that with cross vCenter vMotion, all that stuff. If you've got the same thing in both places, you can
That
move it
was
around.
my next question, Bob. So I didn't look at your screen when you were sharing that and doing the VM config, but does it let you to select any TPM there, right? You don't have to select the vCenter TPM.
Oh, well, or a key provider. So when you do it that way, you pick. It'll use the default. You'll set a key provider as the default, and the default can be set on a cluster basis too. So this is actually something I didn't actually realize existed until one of our engineers clued me in the other day. So you can set it on a cluster basis. So if you've got one cluster that belongs to one customer and another cluster that belongs to a different customer, you can have different key providers as the defaults for them. So,
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, you and me both, Bell, and so one of our engineers, Jesse Poole is his name. He's a great guy. Also Canadian, and all you Canadians are great. And was cluing me in as a solution to something we were discussing. So, but and so by default, it just uses whatever well, that's interesting. Oh, it's because I've got the default checked there. But yeah, that is cool. So yeah, we've got native key providers, and like I was saying, you can just back this up. In fact, Daniel, you said you back it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to use it elsewhere, you can restore it and all kinds of goodness there.
One of the things I did was because I was running vCenter 7 and then I wanted to go to 8, but I wanted to build new 8. So I had shared storage across both kind of a new version of 8 and the version of 7. And then I backed up and then imported the native key onto vCenter 8 and then just unregistered the VMs from 7, registered them in 8, and boom, everything just worked and my VMs turned on.
That's nice, dude. That's really cool. Hey, I was going to also note that if you give it a name, not my wife's name, but I've got autofill going on here. Native key provider, when you create one, this use key provider only with TPM protected ESXi hosts. If you leave this checked and your host doesn't have a TPM, you'll get really weird errors, and so this refers to the host TPM, ESX's TPM stuff. If you're having weird problems, what you can do is you can uncheck this or back up your key provider, and then when you restore it again, you just don't check that box. And here's the secret. If a host has got a TPM, it'll use the TPM for its secrets, regardless of what you say, either way. So yeah, so you can uncheck that. You can add a key provider. I called my name 1 or whatever, but yeah, not backed up. So somewhere down here, it's prompting me to. I've zoomed in, so it's hard to see. There we go.
I
You
have
can just
another generic
yeah,
question.
what's up?
TPMs. The keys that are stored in there, is there any way to see the encrypted key or know how many keys you've got stored in your TPM for all of these VMs? And is each VM key a distinct key for each VM? I was just curious. That's kind of a generic question.
Daniel knows the answer to this one.
I don't know if you can see the contents within a TPM, but I do, because actually I want to know if that's possible, because that would be cool. But that might also be like an exploit, so that might not be
Right.
possible.
So that's why I wondered that.
Well, and if I can derail you for just a second,
Mhm.
there's really only one key in the TPM. The TPM is not a large storage device, and so you can have a 10,000 VMs registered in a cluster or something like that.
To a
You
single
know,
key.
and, yeah, and so storing all of those
Right.
keys need to be available on the hosts for HA purposes. So all of the hosts will hold the encryption keys in memory while they're running. So well, and it's actually a little different with native key provider, but it holds that data in memory, and so the only thing that's in the hardware TPM is the key for the ESX encrypted configuration. All the rest of it's in the encrypted configuration or in memory. So yeah, there's really limited stuff. So when we say that it's stored in the TPM, I say that a lot, and I'm taking a shortcut. I get called on it by customers every once in a while. That's not actually how it works. You're right.
TPM is like an in-memory database that spins up, and there's only really one key in the TPM that.
Yeah, the TPM, it's not big enough to hold, and
Set. Yeah,
it's
right.
slow. It's like a modem. It's a serial connection on the motherboard, and so you don't want to use that very much. In fact, a vTPM is way faster because it's all emulated. So.
Yeah.
And one of the things within vCenter, as far as I know, in the UI, there isn't a way to see every VM that is using which, like if you have more than one native key in
Right.
your vCenter, as far as I know, you can't see which VMs are using which key. Like if you need to roll that native key for whatever reason, there's not an easy way to do it in the UI, but there is the Power CLI that you can invoke, and you can actually write a PowerShell script that will spit out that information and enumerate it and just list which one is using which by getting the key provider ID. I kind of went on a tangent trying to figure that out because I was learning about native key providers on vCenter 7. And in vCenter 7, when you click on the VM, it doesn't actually tell you which key it's using. But in vCenter 8, if you click on the VM, it will tell you which native key it's using if you have more than one. So I wrote a whole script to figure that out. But I did have questions about the native key provider because I'm working on a blog post that goes a bit deeper into rolling those keys. And the question is about, because when you encrypt the VM, you have the key encrypting key. And then if you do a shallow re-encrypt, then that will roll the key encrypting key. But if you also encrypt the disks, then you get the disk encrypting key. But my understanding is if you do a deep re-encrypt, that rolls the key encrypting key and the disk encrypting key. But if you only do a shallow key, will that break your disk encrypting key?
So the data encryption key, the DEC, is what's encrypting the object itself. And so a VM like this VM that I just added a TPM to, it's got a data encryption key, and that data encryption key is written in the VMX file, the config file for the VM itself. And that might seem really stupid. Why would we put the encryption key in the file itself? Well, one, we don't just put it in there. We use the key encryption key to encrypt it. And so what's written into the config file is actually the encrypted form of the data encryption key. And so when you do a deep rekey, you're right. You change both the data encryption key and the key encryption key, and you get new ones. That requires, that the VM has to be off in order to do that. And it'll go through and re-encrypt all the data, just like it did the first time when you turned on VM encryption. But a shallow rekey only changes the key encryption key. And so the VM can be on because it's just rewriting the configuration file, right? And so the VM can be on, and it'll just get a new key from the key provider and use that key instead.
But if the data encryption key is referencing the key encrypting key, how would it be able to know that you've rolled the key encrypting key and not break the data encryption key?
Well, it's because vCenter, when you trigger the rekey, the re-encrypt process, it will vCenter coordinates that. Basically, it will it tells ESX to do it, and then ESX will coordinate getting the new key and the new key encryption key, and then writing the change to the configuration file. So
cool.
So
And
yeah, it is kind of cool.
If for the last 5 minutes of the podcast, you actually have to have a encryption manager to unencrypt what Bob and Daniel just talked about. You got to key encrypt the encryption.
There's a lot. Hey, dude, this is a popular topic, man. Like this every day. I have the same conversation. Daniel just happened to step into it here. But no, it's good to have kindred spirits out there talking about this stuff because there's not enough of us.
That begs the question: is there documentation in vCenter in the docs to walk you through this as because I could see a certification just on how to manage your encryption and moving from version to version and managing that, right? It's got to be a process. Yeah.
Yep, there's definitely documentation. It's just the documentation wasn't clear on how the key encrypting key worked in conjunction with the data encrypting key. So I was like, I know who to ask.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The other thing too, when 9 finally ships, I've got a new presentation that I'm going to record and put up on our YouTube channels for this. My other stuff is getting a little old at this point, but it really hasn't changed. And yeah, I'm glad you really like native key provider. We really thought hard about how to do that and make it easy in the face of Windows 11 and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see it as beneficial to help kind of encrypt things so that if someone somehow got your hardware, well, if they don't actually have your vCenter, well, they can't do much.
Well, the key is not stored in vCenter. It's actually stored on all the hosts. So if they steal your host, they can get all your data. Stuff.
Well, I meant like your VMDK files and stuff like that.
Sure.
Do we think Windows 11 is going to be more secure? Are we going to slowly squeeze out the number of viruses that attack the
Windows is definitely more secure running on vSphere. I'll just leave it at that, as long as there's no follow-up questions.
Right. Well, they are putting a lot of time and energy into security generally, and hopefully this will just eliminate the number of viruses that we have to deal with when we're talking about Windows. Right.
I don't think viruses will ever go away, because if someone's an attacker, they're going to look at it and go, how much of the world runs Windows? Well, then I'm just going to make something that infects Windows. And yeah.
And get somebody with privileges on the machine to run it, like, hey, play my new little game, ransomware, look at that. That's the game.
Everyone needs domain admin and local admin, right?
Absolutely. Hey, I'm a diva when it comes to that stuff. I want to be able to control my own destiny.
Broadcom has a place that we're supposed to report phishing attacks, right? So when you get mail phishing attacks, you can send it to security.
We get them once in a while, yeah.
I sent one this morning because I was like, all right, this is obvious, right? It was like, we can do, I forget what it was. It was something they wanted me to do in order to be compliant on your VPN. It was a VPN. So run this to, VPN access, right? I was like, oh, that's like insidious. So I sent it to SecOps going, here, I think this is the right alias, but sometimes our corp sends out phishing to employees to see what you'll do, and if you click on it, you get a nastygram from the SecOps people. But
I've absentmindedly clicked on that before just because I wanted to see what it was, not realizing, oh crap, I shouldn't have clicked that, whoops, my bad.
But yeah, that's the interesting topics. I know in your blog you also talk a little bit about how to back it up, right? So there's a backup function in vCenter, it looks like, to do that.
Yeah, you can back it up as a P12 file, as a certificate file. You definitely should put a password on that file, because if you don't have a password on it, you can just import it anywhere. But if you do have a password, then when you try to import it into a different vCenter or something, you need to know what that password is, assuming you store that password not in a text file beside the cert.
Post-it note on the USB drive that I keep it on. So
That's
I'm
interesting.
actually not even joking about that. That was some of the DR stuff. You think about DR once in a while, like, will you be the person to restore this system? And how will that person know that key? And we were storing secrets like that in a safety deposit box at a bank anyhow. So it depends, but I agree with you in general.
Yeah, interesting. Right. Yeah. Okay. So the nice, clean blog article. I had to dig down on your blog. It wasn't above the fold. So that article on key management was multiple blog articles down, like from maybe 6 months ago. So go check that out. The title is vCenter native key provider. And it was done in February, so 2025/02/ singular.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was
Oh.
yeah. So
I was just going to say, Daniel, you were talking about publishing some scripts to dump key data and all that stuff too. Is that in your future here?
Yes, that is in my future.
Excellent.
Got to find time, because I've been working on this one since February 2024. It sometimes takes a while to vet everything and make sure it all works, but I am working on a follow-up blog post. I needed a blog post that talked about it first to explain what it is so that people understand, and then there'll be one about rolling your native key and how to enumerate the VMs that are currently using it, so that you can easily kind of process of elimination, just switch your native key and either do deep rekey or just shallow rekey, whatever the user prefers.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm actually, I noticed you also have some Azure AD and Entra Connect stuff too. Are you using that for authentication?
Not for vCenter, but for as many things as I can. Everything is SSOing as much as possible, as Entra ID is like the identity provider, because who wants more passwords?
No, I agree. I was going to ask is it's been a hot topic lately. In fact, Richard Kenyon out of the Buffalo, New York area was texting me yesterday about some of our instructions for this, and that I need to take a look at the documentation. That it's a little wild. So
yeah, because I think the official documentation says publish your vCenter to the internet.
yeah, I've noticed that. I thought we had fixed that. Former coworker was working on fixing that, and so I don't think she got as far as I thought she did. So, but yes, don't put your vCenter on the internet, please. You can use, and I believe it's using the Entra Connect appliance, right, to do that locally.
There's another one. There was another one where it was also doing like the MS proxy, but then that's still technically the internet. The blog post that I think Richard was talking about is the one where it does the interest kind of as single sign-on, but it, rather than exposing vCenter to the internet, it sets up like a skim bridge so that it can provision the users onto vCenter and no actual raw internet access is needed.
Yeah, which is another total win from the community, because the blog post that I'm thinking of is another guy like you. I don't remember who it is. I'm going to look that up right now and find it, so that compunet.biz, wherever that is. But it's a wonderful community success, like you've been talking about with Native Key Provider. Somebody, it's becoming the reference is what it amounts to. So
I think there was a discussion on Reddit about it too.
there was William Lamb was commenting as well. I've been meaning to get in touch with him about what was going on. So
all right,
I'll find it.
Anyway. We've been going for 48 minutes, coming to
oh my goodness,
the hour.
Nerdery.
Always. It just drifts by. So great topics, great blog article, and good to drill down on this a little bit. So question for you, Daniel. We always ask, like, what excites you for the back half of the year? You're up in Canada, is that right? Like I
Yep.
think Calgary, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Yep. What excites you for the back half of the year? And then we'll get to some barbecue, right? Because we do stream on youtube.com/vbarbecue. You can go give us a like and a follow. If you've listened this far into the show, you can go like us over there. But Daniel, what excites you for the back half of the year?
In August, I'm going to World of EUC, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on application deployment with Intune and PowerShell. So I'm very excited about that.
Nice.
And the excitement of assuming that VCF9 comes out this year, then that will be exciting. I'm going to be building more, just a bigger home lab that would support VCF and getting those Minisform AO2 systems so that I can hopefully run VCF9, but we'll see. And yeah, that's tech things are always what excite me.
Are you going to explore again this year?
I have to find out internally because I think there might be scheduling conflicts, but I'm not 100% sure.
Cool.
But I hope to because I went last year and it was great.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Yeah, last year was a good conference. I'm hoping for the same. It's actually going to be more technical than it was last year. And so, yeah, come find us when you're there. I hope you can make it.
Sessions on Intune and PowerShell, or in something in PowerShell.
Intune,
I missed the in. What was the in, and what is that?
Intune. It is Microsoft's mobile device management. It allows you to manage workstations, not servers. You use different things for that, but end user workstations, all the computers and all of that, you can manage it all through that. And it allows you to, it's like, think of it as modern GPOs for internet connected devices, and then having to make less GPOs, but you can do applications where you, if you've ever worked with SCCM, Microsoft System Center, whatever it fully stands for. Maybe some places
switching here, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's kind of like almost a drop-in replacement. A lot of the same scripts you were using in SCCM can be used inside of Intune. The biggest thing that I like about it is the fact that you can present applications to the end users and they can install them themselves, even if it's like a system-wide app. The users can just do it without having to give them local admin, which is super nice. And yeah, you can also, like, I wrote a script recently because I was playing with Windows 11 on ESXi, and I wanted to upgrade VMware tools, but I didn't want to do it through the UI. So I wrote a script that installs VMware tools through Intune.
Nice.
And yeah,
look at that. That's news, and I like to pay attention to all things PowerShell. So I'll go look around, see what I see. Nice. And are you going to publish that deck somewhere? Are you going to publish the presentation on your blog?
I will be publishing it on my blog. Yep.
All right. Well,
in August.
give you something to do.
Yep.
All right. Well, then the last thing in Canada, I think cattle is outlawed now, right? So you don't get to eat beef anymore. So you're eating veggies. So what do you barbecue up there?
Yeah. What do you grill or smoke?
Everything. It's the same as down in the States.
Nice. What do you prefer?
I like brisket.
Oh yeah.
Brisket's real good.
I don't get it. I just crumbly. It's like,
one of my favorites.
Like barbecue ribs. Give me a pork rib every day.
Or steak, but I don't think steak counts.
Yeah, it does. Down in mid-central California, they're all about the steak, and to barbecue to them is just, don't put any sauce, don't even see, just how do you
salt
smoke
and pepper? Yeah.
How do you smoke it on a grill and make a nice piece of beef, right? Yeah, that's their deal.
Crusty steak.
And maybe they'll have a dry rub for steak too. They'll do a dry rub. Santa Maria, down in the central state, San Simeon down over there, where the mid central cattle region. Don't say steak is not barbecue. Tree, I like it. By your toes. Yeah. Yep. There you go. All right. Well, that's the end of the show. I'm now hungry for lunch. It's 1:06 p.m. here at time. I'm gonna go get myself a piece of meat somewhere. And until then, we got stuff coming up. We're gonna be talking about. We're gonna have a lot of podcasts on vSphere 9. I can't say when because that would give things away, but we're excited about that. There is a vMug UserCon virtual event. Go to vmug.com.
24th.
Definitely sign up June 24th for that. A lot of stuff. The agenda, I think, is out.
Yeah, and if you look at the agenda, there's clues there.
clues.
So, you know,
on what we're going to be talking about and what's going to be available, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely go do that. And then we're going to have some good podcasts on those topics. So it should be a good summer leading up to Explore. So until then, go get some barbecue. Bob, Daniel, Corey, thanks a lot for being here every week.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is
Thanks,
fun.
everyone.